Here at Helmuth Ford, we are a small town dealership with no hassle and no pressure.
Hi, this is Stacy from Shetler Insurance Services. Come see me on the east side of the square in Sigourney for all your insurance needs.
Jody's Journeys is going to the Noah's Ark and Creation Museum in Petersburg, Kentucky, May 27th through the 30th. Join Jody Greiner with Jody's Journeys and create memories for a lifetime with this incredible experience. Seats are extremely limited. Call Jody now to reserve your seat. Experience Bible history at the life-size Noah's Ark. Contact Jody at 641-660-6417. Email her or go to Jody's Journeys on Facebook for more information.
This is the Death Dealer, and you're watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is Bryce Jordan, and you're watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
Hey, this is Jared Thumb, and you are watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling fans, if you want the best wrestling news, you want to watch Shotgun Wrestling Radio. This is James Jeffries, and tell them that I sent you there. Yeah!
What's up, everybody? It's Leon King here, of course, the baddest of the baddest, and you are now listening to Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
I am Eric S. Knight.
And I'm Malik Champion.
And we are the chosen prodigal sons, and this is the Shotgun Wrestling Radio podcast.
This is your Deathmatch Daddy Bo guy, and you're watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Brock Anderson, and you are watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is Augustus Draven, and you're watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is the Feline Phenom, JT Energy, and you're experiencing Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Shotgun Wrestling Radio. I'm your host, Zach Takis, and this week we are continuing to do what we've been doing here all year, getting different guests on from the Iowa independent professional wrestling scene. This person I've been wanting to have on for a while. I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last several months just from seeing him in the Central Empire Wrestling shows. Now he's finally starting to get his feet wet in the actual ring and stepping out away from being the referee role. And again, I'm just really excited to have this person on. I'm going to welcome in my guest at this time, the one and the only, Mr. Mason Grayskull. Mason, my man, how are you?
I'm good, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Let's jump right into it, dude. Let's kind of let people know how your journey in professional wrestling started, where you did your training. Was it something that you kind of always wanted to do growing up as a kid? Let's go ahead and kind of just jump right into it.
Oh, man. Yeah, so when I was a kid, I definitely wanted to do it, right? I started watching wrestling probably around the time I was 10 years old. We're talking around WrestleMania 10, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Yokozuna, that type of era. And I always wanted to do it. It was kind of an escape for me, right? I grew up in a house where my mom was a little weird. She listened to a police scanner 24 hours a day. It was always on. I was never really allowed much of anywhere out of the house because it was dangerous here or it was dangerous there. Man, I just felt trapped. And that was every Monday night, that was my little escape. But I never really kind of took it to heart right away. I got out of high school, moved, I grew up in California, and I moved up to Sacramento to college or whatnot. And that just started a long period of just drinking and just kind of bullshitting and then throwing away a lot of potential. And it took a long time. I got sober when I was 38, a little over 3 years ago. And I decided I was going to get out of California and move to Davenport. So I sold my house. I bought a house here in Davenport, and man, I'm older. At this point, I'm 38, and I'm going, if I'm going to do this, it's now or never. Right? I was 280 pounds. I mean, I was a big guy. I was not in any sort of shape to do it, but one day I just literally walked right into Black and Brave and said hi to Colby and said hi to Merrick. And I asked them about the school. They told me about applying for it, and I went ahead and did that, and got a CrossFit coach, a nutritionist. I got all the weight off, and I ended up training at Black and Brave last May and graduating last July. And since then, I've just been pushing as hard as I can to get on as many shows as I can, to get in as many reps as I can, and just have a fun time doing it. I'm 41 years old, so if I can get a good 5 to 10 years out of this, I'm happy. But at the end of the day, I'm happy right now. I get to step into a ring, and I get to perform in front of audiences and do something I never thought was possible. So just that in and of itself, man, that fulfills my dream as it is. Just the fact that I'm doing this when 99% of people out there probably have never even stepped foot into a wrestling ring.
Now, speaking of that, what was your memory of your first day at training? Everybody has different training stories. What were some of your first memories from your first couple weeks of training?
Oh, well, the first day of training, they call it day 0, and I can't really disclose necessarily what's involved, but it's a big, long conditioning test. And I had done like 20 months of CrossFit leading up to this. So I thought I was prepared for it, but it was a lot. It was absolutely a lot. Not impossible, but man, it was a grind, and it was tough to get through. And when you mention the first couple of weeks, I think that's the hardest part of wrestling school. I think that's when most people drop usually, is that first couple of weeks, because you're learning how to bump. It's not natural to fall flat on your back on big planks of wood, right? People don't just do that normally. And some people, the pain just gets to them. So that's kind of the tough part, but eventually you kind of callous up to it a bit, and you move forward.
Now, when you first started your training group, how many guys did you start with in the class?
I believe we had 11 when we started. Yeah.
And how many ended?
There was 5 of us.
Okay, so about half. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always an interesting thing to me. Like, you hear all those stories, like, oh, we had X amount of people and this many ended up finishing. I mean, it just goes to show you what, that training is like. And, you obviously being a fan, I'm sure you were aware of, Seth Rollins before you came into the Black and Brave. What was it like kind of getting in there and mixing it up with him and learning from him? Like, was there any kind of starstruckness, or does I guess my question is, did he give you guys like a moment to say, all right, if you guys want to get anything out of the way, get it out of the way now, because from this moment on, I'm your coach?
Oh, no, no, it wasn't quite like that. He's when he's training you, and that's his responsibility, and that's the role he's in. He's very personable. And man, he's got a lot of wisdom to share, a lot of wisdom. And sometimes it's just those little things that'll just make a match great. It's not necessarily, here's how you do a back body drop, or here's how you do a clothesline. It has a lot to do with, the performance, and he's really generous with his time. I mean, I think a couple of weeks ago, he did like a Zoom for all of us graduates to get a little bit more like advanced knowledge in and ask a lot of questions. And he just spent 3 hours with us on a Sunday night, just to help us all out. So I was really grateful to be able to be trained by him. But it was also, a lot of Merrick, a lot of Crotch, Matt Mayday. They were there day in and day out, just going through the grind with us. And I'm really appreciative to those two as well.
It's always funny for me because Seth was probably our first like big interview get that we ever had on the show back when he was known as Tyler Black, and at the time he was the Ring of Honor World Champion. And I remember just started out, back in the day, just simple Twitter DM, hey, are you interested in coming on the show? And he said, yeah. And I listened to that show back every once in a while. I'm like, man, we were really bad. I mean, but again, it was our first like big time interview. So I know between me and my former co-host, we both had kind of the jitters because it was like our first big time start to get somebody from that caliber of Ring of Honor on. And I remember later on down the line too, I was at a 3XW show. He made a surprise appearance at the 3XW show I was at as Ring of Honor champion. So I remember, and this is the fun part. I always get to rub it in my brother-in-law's face. Now, I remember went up to meet him after his match, did the whole picture and all that stuff. And I asked my brother, I'm like, you want to get a picture with me? He was like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm going to rub this in your face about 5 years from now. Sure enough, I've been able to rub it in his face ever since then. So for me, it's been fun to see how far that dude's come.
Yeah, he's come a long way. And he's really at the top of the game. He's really, really good at what he does. From time to time, I live here in Davenport, so I go into Black and Brave frequently. Like I was in there today. But occasionally I'll see him in there working out, and it's just to see his level of discipline, it's just otherworldly. He takes what he does very seriously, and it shows. It shows by how fluid he is in the ring and how good he is in different aspects of it, as far as like on the mic, as far as kind of the flow of a match. He's really, just one. I believe he's one of the top guys in WWE right now as far as skill level.
Well, shit, just even that cage match him and Punk had this past Monday. Like you knew anytime him and Punk were going to get together, it was going to be magic. Just because that's how both those guys grew up in the same pedigree, the same independent scene. So you knew the moment those two locked up from the very first time, that was kind of one of those dream matches all of us diehard wrestling fans wanted to see. And it's never disappointed anytime they've been in the ring together. And I'm curious to see kind of how it evolves from here until WrestleMania season, because definitely just based on the ending we saw the other night, doesn't seem like it's that, it's over yet. But okay, getting back to
I don't know where they're going. They're going Roman versus Seth, or maybe a triple threat, or it's always interesting to see where these storylines go. Just a couple of months ago, I was having a conversation with the regular referee from SCW Pro, Riley. Right, I think we were on the road, and we were going, man, I can't figure out where WWE is going to go with a lot of these things for WrestleMania. And I go, you know what? Just wait. You watch it unfold. They've got something up their sleeve,
Yep. Speaking of being a referee, that's kind of how I first met you, going to Central Empire Wrestling shows. You were kind of getting your feet wet in there being a referee. How did, stepping into that referee role for you, how did that kind of come about?
That actually started with Merrick. So, I think SCW Pro was having a fundraiser for some kid, I believe he had cancer, lung cancer or something like that, like probably about a year before I started training almost. And it was at Lopez, and I went in there and I donated, and I met Merrick and I talked to him and told him, hey, I'm going to be in the class next year because, believe it or not, there's about a 2-year waiting list once you get accepted to Black and Brave. So I just said, you know what, before I go, like, I'd like to learn as much as I can. Do you mind if I come to shows, help out, learn how to put up a ring, tear down a ring, whatever you guys need for help? And he was happy to have me. And so I started doing that for shows, just kind of working security and putting together the rings and tearing them down. And one night we were at Wildwood and we were down a referee. Angle couldn't make it there. And Merrick goes, hey, Will, you want to referee today? So that's where it kind of started. And I just, I went out to a few different companies from there, and I thought it was a really good way to network and meet some of these promoters and some of the other talent that soon enough that I'd be in the ring with wrestling and just kind of start to build a network before training.
Yeah.
Right. If for some reason I got injured in training and this dream of mine didn't happen, what's the worst thing that can happen? I met some people. But if I got through training and everything went well, I've got a small network to start building off of. So that was kind of my mindset. I never try to go into anything expecting something from somebody. I just truly want to go in, help out, meet people. And sometimes you get something out of it and sometimes you don't. But truly, you kind of always do, because even if you don't get on a show or something that you just go to, you meet the promoter, you meet a lot of the other talent, and you make some connections that way.
And that's what I've been telling a lot of people, because a lot of people will kind of come up to me and they're like, hey, I want to get on a Central Empire Wrestling show. I'm like, okay, well, come early, help set up. And they kind of, and I keep telling people, I'm like, that's one thing that promoters will remember. If you are willing to come and help set up the ring, load in barricades, whatever you need, introduce yourself to the promoter, they're going to remember that. I mean, it's evident here with you in Central Empire Wrestling too. It's like I said, I remember you from us being there, helping, doing setups, setting up the ring, setting up the guardrails, all sorts of things. And yeah, now you're getting booked pretty regularly there for Central Empire Wrestling.
Well, the funny thing is when it comes to like ring setup and all that, and I remember back, it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I think I was watching something on Vice. It was some wrestling show about like the indies or something like that. It was kind of centered around Austin Theory before he was in WWE. But I believe they were interviewing the promoter for GCW or something like that. And this was after Drew McIntyre had been let go from WWE. And in the background, I see Drew McIntyre walk across with 2 planks in his hand, 2 boards in his hand, setting up a ring. And I go, this is a guy who worked for WWE for years. If he's not too good to set up a ring, I'm never going to be too good to set up a ring.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my mindset going into it. I know I'm still green. I know it's expected of me, but if I'm 10 years into this, I'm still going to be setting up and tearing down a ring.
Yeah.
I think it's just part of the whole deal.
And I always tell people too, I'm like, we can never have enough ring setup help. That's the one thing that I think with every show, you can never have enough. You can always think to your head, oh, well, I'm sure they have enough people. No, we can never have enough help.
Yeah, there's very few times where I've seen too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Like when you have an army of people doing this, you can get this type of thing done in 15, maybe 20 minutes.
Yep.
But if I've been in situations too where there's maybe, I did a loadout in like Central Illinois one time, and there was like 5 of us, and everything had to go around this like corner through these doors. It must have taken us 2.5 hours to get the ring out to the trailer. But when I saw that there was like all the wrestlers had taken off and there was 3 people loading, I was there with Riley as well. We just said, we're going to stay here and help load the ring.